Well, it's a great pleasure to welcome to What's Next, the CEO of Informed Decisions, Mr. Pieter Pienaar, who joins us on this particular virtual call. Pieter is the Chief Executive Officer at Informed Decisions. Pieter, it's great to see you again. I hope that you're well. Just tell us a little bit about Informed Decisions. What is it that you guys do? I know that you're big in the IoT sector, so do give us a bit of background on Informed Decisions, who you guys are and what you guys do.
Thank you very much, Aki. Yes, Informed Decisions is in its 5th year of operation. We started the company 5 years ago specifically to play in the space. I had a hunch and had a passion for the industry, and wanted to change things slightly. So we could see, we think we could see a little bit into the future. So we started doing things slightly differently to the norm, and that's how Informed Decisions was started.
Did you see like a big gap in the market? I mean, we've all been talking about this massive explosion in IoT, and initially the predictions were billions of devices, but I mean, the market has really matured a lot in the 5 years. So you must have seen something that sparked something in Pieter Pienaar. What was that turning point that you said, aha, this is the industry that's going to grow? Do you remember that moment?
Aki, to be honest with you, yes, I remember exactly the moment where I decided that I'm going to get into this space. And at that point in time, it was the moment that I had was, why is everybody missing the point? Everybody that I've spoken to at that point was going through a data gathering space. And I think the plus point or the benefit that I had is I was divorced from the industry. I didn't know what it was. I'm a consultant. I could just see the massive opportunity that was coming our way when it came to this. And the little bit of technology, the experience that I had back in the day, matched, I connected the dots. And I could see that if we moved this thing into that space, that it would be something spectacular. Back 6, 7, 8 years ago, my peers today was laughing at me and asking me why am I trying to reinvent the wheel. And today we are very solidly on our way to be a contender for the standard when it comes to IoT technology.
Wow, that's a wonderful story. Isn't it amazing, that the moment you take a step back from a clouded space, you see things completely differently. Now, take us to today, and your technology is very different. What makes Informed technology so different in the IoT space?
So I'm a very lazy person, not generally, but I take the lazy man's approach to operations to make sure that nothing is wasted and lost. And when we started looking at the technology, we wanted to play in the platform space. Let's show our customers the details. And very quickly we found that it's not possible. Although there's hundreds of thousands of hardware manufacturers in the world, stringing them all together is almost impossible. And stringing them together in the way that we want them to work proved to be a bigger challenge. So we changed the company's business model to a point where we design our own technology. So we've taken best in breed, taken the LoRa network, we looked at Sigfox, we looked at other technologies, and then we rewrote our own protocol. We rewrote it in a way that gives us a lot more flexibility, better control, and a scalability into the technology. And where we are at the moment, we are able to do at least 3 times more than what any of our competitors can do in the same type of space. I like to say that we are trying to get to a long-range wireless network SCADA type of environment. SCADA is definitely the go-to standard when it comes to machines talking to machines and the management of that, and we are heading towards that, but just with wireless technology.
Wow, that's really, really interesting and quite impressive that you've turned it literally upside down. So how do you see yourselves and how do you compare and compete with, for example, with open source alternatives out there? Because you mentioned a couple. So how do you compare or compete with these guys in the market?
So I don't see ourselves competing in the market directly. Everybody's got a space in the world. We do offer a better secure or more secure solution to our customers. And when it becomes when we create the capability of talking back to the device and actioning something on the ground, that becomes imperative. So gathering information, if the information by itself is insequential, it's fine. The security doesn't have to be as good as what we need it to be. But our ability to talk back to the device, action something within the CASA regulations and so forth, requires that added pinch of security. So I think that's one of the key things, and the ability of doing a lot more with the same type of resources, I think, is the thing that puts us apart and makes us competitive in the market. The last thing there is, because we develop our own technology, we are the manufacturers, we are the designers. There's no middleman. We're not buying technology, putting a markup on it, and then selling it again. So we are able to offer our technology at a competitive price.
See, that's pretty impressive in itself. The fact that you're manufacturing your own technology, and the one thing that people will tell you about IoT is the Achilles heel is security. I mean, everyone's petrified of security. We've heard of the vulnerabilities that are out there. So it's great to see that you've actually focused on that niche in that specific market. Where are you taking informed decisions? I mean, where do you see yourselves going over the next 3 years? You've had a very interesting last 5 years, but the next 3 years, I guess, is going to be take off and putting everything that you've been talking about into practice and even growing even further across the world, right? What are your plans for the next 3 years?
Yeah, so we want to take over the world, as any small entrepreneurial business wants to do. In the first 2 or 3 years of our existence, we focused on R&D. We focused on making sure that our technology is sound and it works. We have now gotten into a commercials phase of the business, where we've also gotten on a couple of investors. Very excited about that, and I think that will be a subject of the next chat we'll have. But the intent is to take this global. We are opening offices or presence in East Africa, in Europe. We are hoping to be in the States by the end of next year. The technology, with all the legislation and regulation that goes along with that, is a key part of the journey. And we will be launching a public type of gateway or router, or whatever you want to call it, that very shortly. And in this, we're taking together all the LPWAN type of technologies into a single spot, and then we will start playing in a semi-public, public network environment. So that's one of our key objectives. But at the end, we want to be the standard of IoT globally, and we want to be a player in the global space.
That's pretty impressive stuff, Pieter. I mean, when you speak to people and you meet people for the first time and you start talking to them about informed decisions, is there one specific product or one specific achievement that you tell people that this is what they did? What's your wow achievement, your crowning achievement at Informed Decisions?
I always say that just keeping the team together and making sure that we keep focus on our core goals, that's an achievement by itself. But I must say, there's a couple of achievements that I can mention, and one is AB InBev Hack the World competition. It was our very first thing that we entered, and we won our category in Tanzania. We also won the National IoT Award that MTN hosts in 2019.
Yes.
And there we were crowned in our category as well as the overall winners of the night or of the day, which is quite an interesting process. I've never been somebody to look for competitions to get your word out, but it worked fantastically, and we've taken a huge leap ahead as a result.
Well, listen, congratulations. I mean, those are no small feats to win those kind of accolades, because they are certainly hotly contested. I know the MTN competition you talk about, and you look at some of the previous winners and some of the people making it into the top 5. It's pretty impressive to say you've won that particular award. One of the things, Pieter, when you talk about IoT, and I guess because it's something that's, well, it's a maturing technology, but standards are still an issue, right? How do global standards fit into your particular future plans?
Okay, it's fairly set. The standards or the regulations fairly set. The standards are quite wide at the moment, and I believe that South Africa as a player in the global stage, we're ahead of the game. A lot of our competitors and my friends in the industry are doing phenomenal things. And if I do some public speaking in the States or in Europe, it's very apparent that they are so far behind us when it comes to these technologies. It's either because they don't need to have it, because their broadband is open and their speeds are higher, so they don't need to look at longer range wireless technologies, and they've got the money potentially in their space to put power down all the way down into the bottom of a field, to be able to get information that's needed. But I think we're growing in South Africa faster than the rest of the world, and it's an awesome space to be in, because not only are informed decisions benefiting from it, but I think South Africa as a country is going to make a big splash on the global stage.
Oh, that's pretty exciting. I mean, Pieter, you've been in this game for over 5 years now. Where are you seeing the biggest growth in IoT? I remember looking at a couple of charts a few days ago. Like agriculture was right there on top of it. We're talking about smart cities, but certainly IoT fits into every single portfolio. But agriculture and farming seems to be on top. Where are you seeing the growth happening in the IoT sector?
Absolutely, that I think agriculture is the fastest growing area for us. It's a big, massive opportunity that a lot of players are playing in there. But I think the shortcomings with the traditional technologies is the Achilles heel when it comes to agriculture. So agriculture definitely a big place we're playing. We're doing some nice things there. We're adding some value for our customers. The next area would be pharmaceutical manufacturing. Let's call it manufacturing for that matter. There's a lot of things that the PLCs and the SCADA systems were too expensive in the day to monitor, and our technology fits in right between that to just close that gap. Smart cities, as you say, very recently we got involved in municipal approach and municipal work. But I can see that there's a massive opportunity there as well. I think if we, from a pricing point of view and a capability point of view, and a control point of view to a certain extent, allow not only the municipality to manage the grid and the reticulation and so forth, but give the control over to the citizen as well. You've got a marriage of minds. You're managing both sides, and everybody benefits from it. And that's the way we're going to win this, is if there's more than one stakeholder and everybody's got a benefit out of the technology that we deploy.
Yeah, I guess we all take ownership of the technology to really make it work. Pieter, I just want to go back on the agricultural stuff that you spoke about, the informed decision stuff that you guys are doing. Can you give us a scenario in the agriculture sector of one of your solutions that are out there and what it's doing?
Yeah, sure. So in every customer we get into, it normally starts off in the same way. It's normally, what is the big pain points? And nine times out of 10, it's water, electricity, and gas. And on a farm, it's exactly the same thing. It's their diesel. Their diesel gets stolen. So how do we monitor diesel? It's the water usage, as electricity is a big thing. Then we start looking at how do we manage water a level down, and that would be dams, boreholes, water quality, etc., etc., etc. So the technology gives us, and we put a couple of sensors dotted around the farm, soil moisture and temperature. We can control the pivot. We can monitor the pivot. So we do a lot of health checking, but also allow control. So if we take pivot as an option or as a point, the pivot works very simply. There's water, it turns, and it wets the ground. So we monitor a couple of things like pressure. Is the water pressure right? And that tells us if there's a leak, or if one of the heads are broken or blocked or missing, for that matter. We measure the water flow so that we can do the delta calculation between pressure and flow, and that will tell us a whole bunch of other things then related to the pivot. We've also put a compass on there, which then tells us how fast the pivot's moving, what direction it's going, and then we can apply control. So we can then switch it on and off, or we can move it backwards or forwards or back to a 0 point. But it goes a lot further than that. Knowing now how much water is going into the dam, for instance, through the bowl holes, we've got a weather station deployed, so we know how much rain has come down, we know what the wind was, what the gusts of wind were, what direction, we know what the sun intensity was. So we can now start calculating what is evaporation. We can calculate how much water was pumped into the dam, how much evaporated, how much was used by the pivot system. So we can accurately start looking at total holistic water in a farming environment. And just that gives us value enough to deploy everything else. But we've just launched a GPS tracking device that runs on the network. So that's hot off the presses. It's, the first devices arrived this week. And we started adding, or we're starting to add a whole bunch of other things into the agri space. One thing that we're also working on, I'm very excited about, and I shouldn't really say too much, is a river system monitor, where we monitor the water quality, the dissolved oxygen, the nitrates, the water flow, the level, and all of those kind of things that will then give farmers the information around their fertilizer and how it seeps into the river systems. It will give the municipalities the water quality parameters that they need. It will give the residents the water quality and flow and flood warnings and all of those kind of things that comes along with that. And that's all built around the same basic technology. It's just putting sensors on a network and putting it through into the cloud. And then I hand it over to the real clever people, and they tell us what is all the big points there.
Geez, Pieter, I mean, I absolutely love the stuff that you do. I mean, this stuff gets me so excited. You got to think to yourself, you know, what did farmers do 50 years ago? I mean, today they've got access to this incredible data that really increases their yields, makes their job a lot easier, thanks to technology and companies like Informed Decisions. I mean, this stuff really blows me away. I'm looking forward to watching your growth trajectory and your path and all the new products that you've been talking about and alluding to. So I'm looking forward to that. Pieter Pienaar, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Informed Decisions, talking about IoT and how IoT is literally changing the world and changing the lives of farmers. Pieter, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Aki. It's been a pleasure.